Yesterday, I had mentioned that I'd unblocked my father. I don't know. Do you get? I wonder if many times people get tired of hearing about my sort of personal exploits. Many are so familiar with my story that they can probably quote it back to me. So the idea that I'm going to tell them anything new, or maybe they're tired. This is all old hat. Blah blah blah. But there are also many who are really, really curious about the situation with my religious parents. If you're not familiar, the very short version is for almost 10 years, we've been going back and forth. We've been having religious discussions. I am the prodigal son. They're trying to convert me. And of course, the more they try to explain and defend Jesus and the Bible and Christianity on every potential ground, scientifically, morally, historically, whatever, the more they defend and explain it, the more ridiculous it sounds. So they're actually damaging their position. And I'll switch over here to the live chat in case you guys are interested, because this is a live stream and you guys are welcome to chime in. For me, it's about boundaries. Believe all you want, knock yourself out, but you don't get to tell me to believe. And it's just been, I tell people, it's like being the castle and the opposing army comes at you from every angle looking for the weakness, right? So one day it's the argument for morality, and the next day it's the God of the gaps angle, and science proves God, then the next day you can't trust scientists. The Bible is the source of prophetic wisdom, prophecies fulfilled. What are some of the other ones? I've been given a ton of books. When God Doesn't Make Sense, that was a favorite. When Mom gave me, someone had mentioned they remembered the Alistair McGrath book, The Dawkins Delusion. She hadn't read the book, but it was about Dawkins. It was negative toward Richard Dawkins, so it must be true, so she gave it to me. She gave me an anti-evolution book written by a person who had no expertise or education in evolutionary biology, happened to be a police officer turned pastor. I remember that. It's just, one day after the other. And I engage, and I come from a culture where I come from a family where you give, to a degree, some deference to mom and dad because of all they did for you. And they sacrificed a tremendous amount for us. They sacrificed so much to, get us an education and to make sure that we were able to, function safely in the world. And they really did. They operate from a point of tremendous sincerity. Doesn't mean that they're not doing tremendous damage in some ways, but they're not being respectful of an adult child's established boundaries. And that's what the argument for me comes down to. Agree, disagree, believe, don't believe, whatever. For them, they think they have like a parental obligation to continue to step over the threshold of my life and tell me that it's funny, Dad, I have a really good life. No, you don't. Dad, I'm surrounded with love and a sense of purpose. No, you don't. Dad, I'm more comfortable in my skin than I've ever been. No, you're not. He just cannot process somebody who's an atheist who is in a good place. For him, he is a Fox News Christian, okay? So anyway, last fall, I blocked both my parents on my text because they were just driving me crazy. Just driving me crazy. I think one of the last texts was something along the lines of, the atheist will be ashes under the feet of the believer, which is a threat. And I'm like, what the fuck? Parent or no parent, what's wrong with you? I'm not required to listen to this. So I just hit block and enjoyed some peace and quiet. And, our paths crossed at a couple of family functions, and we were all cordial on the surface. And we are. How are you? It's fine. It's good to see you. There's a little passive aggression going on. Somebody will throw something out, some jab. But largely on the surface, above this sort of river of slime. I don't know if you've seen Ghostbusters 2, but that river of slime underneath the city, that's what this sort of religious conversation has been like. On the surface, we're all pleasant. And the minute I leave, I know they're having a conversation. I can tell when we're sitting at the dinner table at an event of some kind or a family function or on somebody's birthday. We'll get together and I'll show up. Good to see you. How's it going, everybody? And we'll sit and talk and laugh and swap stories. I sometimes sit, kind of far away from mom and dad because it's just hard. And everybody will ask about everybody else's job except mine, which is this, right? Being an atheist activist. Now, how's work going? Oh, it's great. We did this, we did that. And where do you work? What are you doing? Nobody asked me how work's going. Nobody is sort of tapping me on the shoulder to find out how my endeavors are going. They don't want to know. They don't want to bring it up. They don't want to talk about it. And these are the types of things that you learn to accept. After a while, you get used to them. So I guess it was a few weeks ago, I went ahead and unblocked mom and dad. I happened to stop in to see them. I was over in the area. Natalie and I stopped by, sat down for half an hour, and we had a cordial talk with only one passive-aggressive jab, something about evolution that Mom tossed out. Everybody said, hey, it was great to see you. Hey, we'll have to do this again. And I'm thinking to myself, like a battered spouse, I'm thinking, oh, maybe they're changing. And we leave and think, well, that was kind of nice. I mean, Dad's 83, Mom is 80. They were both about to turn a year older here in the fall. And I'm thinking, it sure would be nice to have a relationship. I'm just bitching right now. Okay, you are my bartender. Okay, so thank you. Thanks for listening. Pour another one. I tip well. Okay. So I unblock my parents, thinking maybe we'll have a dialogue, or maybe we'll be able to just sort of, hey, we're having a luncheon on Wednesday, or, your sister did this and you might want to know about it. I mean, I don't know, just family type stuff. And the texts start to come back in from Dad, right? I'm just going to read this to you. Like, he doesn't even talk. My father does not talk like, he doesn't even really speak to you like a human being. He speaks like Franklin Graham's parrot. I mentioned this yesterday. Just this weird cadence of Bible babble. Just Jesus, that's my father. But Dad proved the Bible, and he'll quote a scripture to prove the Bible. Prove Jesus, he quotes the Bible to prove Jesus. Quoting the Bible to prove the Bible, like quoting comic books to prove the existence of Superman, right? So... And I never make any headway. I've never made a lick of headway. And they have every misconception about atheists that there is. I mean, all of the stereotypes that we have heard in our life about what atheists are, what we're like, what we think. Like, to them, all atheists are this. Well, good luck defending that. Hugely, wildly diverse culture of people, individuals who pride themselves on independent thinking. They have one thing in common. They reject the belief in God. They do not believe in a God. But beyond that, there might be some commonalities here and there. But for them, everything is framed in religious language. So I've rejected the true religion of Christianity. Now I'm worshiping at the religion of atheism. My God is Dawkins or the devil or both. So they conflate him sometimes or confuse him or maybe combine Dawkins. He's a favorite target. And then Dad will send me, he just has a shit ton of time, he'll send me these messages that just sound like a Jesus parrot. He said, this was August 3rd, why am I reading a personal text from my father to you? Because screw it. Mom holds out hope for you. When you are open to a sincere discussion, this has been 10 years on now. When you're open to a sincere discussion about life, we will be making progress, he says. And then he proceeds to tell me that their car is being repaired because a big tree on their property fell. It actually fell, and it really damaged one car and it totaled the other car. A tree fell on it some 2 weeks ago. I responded, Jesus didn't push the tree in the other direction. Unfortunate. Dad said, Mom sent you pictures of the damaged car. She wants confirmation you got them. She was apparently blocked at the time. I did not get them. Then Dad says, we'll concede God allowed it to happen. Now, I figure we're doing pretty well right now. There's a concession right there. God didn't protect the two vehicles, and now they're on the hook because they had liability only on two very used vehicles. They're going to have to pay cash to repair these cars. Jesus could have just nudged it in the other direction and spared his children the expense and pain. But no, God allowed it to happen. That's a concession, right? That's a concession. Okay, right. So some time passes. It's the next day, and my father decides to continue. He says, God answers to no one. Here is where Job is helpful. Also, when Job proved faithful, he was given twice as much as he lost. God is good. Now we're getting into Jesus territory. God is good. Right? Did you read the story of Job, Dad? Did you? Again, forgive me, I mentioned this yesterday. Did you read the story of Job? God is hanging out with his arch enemy, who, if you believe, and the stories of Satan as the Bible represents them are hugely messed up. What Satan is and represents has been totally distorted by the church. Satan meaning adversary. But God, according to modern-day Christianity, in traditional fundamentalist Christianity, God is hanging out with his archenemy, Satan. And they're just talking. And Satan's like, yeah, you see that Job guy? If I was to fuck up his life, he'd totally reject you. Now, God already knows this is not the case because God knows everything past, present, and future. But God, for some reason, decides he wants to prove something to the guy who is his archenemy, who has screwed up everything else, who he knows wants to ruin the party, and he should not care what the devil thinks, but for some reason, God actually cares and says, okay, fine, go fuck up his life, and he'll still be faithful. Now, God already knows that this is the truth. So Job's hanging out. He's on his property, on his land, with his children, doing his thing, obeying God, being faithful. And God sits back and allows Satan to go in and destroy everything in this man's life. He just ruins him, including the death of all of his children. Now, this is important to me, because now we're getting into the territory of a moral God who would allow Satan to kill somebody's children. Okay, earthly, temporary children who would then die and achieve immortality. And you don't get away with that. You don't get to skate on that. I'm still over here. Kill your innocent children to make a point to the guy that you should care nothing about his opinion. And he's horribly diseased, and his life is ruined. And yet Job, I think at one point in the story, Job actually complains to God, and God berates him. God actually mocks him because he is not God and a mere pithy human. So God's sort of pouring salt on the wound. Oh, yeah, look, I know you lost everything, and you're heartbroken and miserable and everything, but come on. I mean, come on. It's not like you're God. Shit's going to happen to you. You're just a pithy insect human. And I was trying to make a point, right? I had a beer bet with Satan. Or whatever. So Dad is admiring the story of Job because Job was so faithful. And I'm thinking to myself, you are talking like a slave, right? I mean, look at what God did to Job. God was horrible to him, and yet Job was faithful. We should emulate Job in our own life. Okay, all right, fine. All right. Now, this is kind of what we're up against. The next day, 2 days later, August 6th, my father says, and I'm not responding, right? I'm just letting this shit come in. It's amusing. I'll tell you what brings me great joy. I love it when two lady Fox News people, not just Fox News people, lady Fox News people are on in the evening. Shannon Bream and Molly Hemingway, especially the latter. Now, I don't know who they are. I had to go Google them. Excuse me, I've got the sniffles today. They have the Spirit of God, I tell you. Hemingway is a great commenter. That's just me talking, I know. So our dad's got it for a couple. I mean, he says the two Fox News anchors have the Spirit of God, especially Molly Hemingway. Well, I looked them up on Google. Of course, they're on Fox News. They're hot. Okay. This is how Fox News populates females into their news, right? They're both gorgeous, but I'm sure it's the Spirit of God. I mean, I don't know. It's weird talking about my father in that context. So I don't know. I don't know for sure. But he, this is the same guy who told me when I was a very young and impressionable child that you could tell a believer because of the light in their eye. And I, of course, being a literal child, was looking at like the reflections of the pin lights in everybody's pupils, thinking that everybody I ran into was a Christian. This is my father. Someone's countenance will then give away how godly they are. This is amazing. I don't respond. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 days later. The silence, I'm guessing, is killing him, so he decides to text me again. Supposedly, Socrates said, I suppose it is possible for God to forgive sins, but I don't see how. We know how a righteous God can forgive. He sent the Messiah to be crucified. Jesus parrot again. The penalty has been fully paid. Judicially, atheists have no answer to that universal problem. Now, this falls apart at the very foundation. He's still assuming God and Jesus and the validity and truth of Scripture and building the whole narrative upon Adam and Eve and original sin and humanity's a screw up and we don't deserve goodness. We all deserve hell, and yet Jesus paid it all, like this song, right? All to him I owe. Sin had left its crimson stain. He washed me white as snow. It's my father. Judicially, atheists have no answer to that universal problem. We disagree on your premise that this is a universal problem because I don't see all the stuff that you see as sin, a spiritual battle. I don't see it in a supernatural framework. I do not respond. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, August the 13th. This morning, he jumps in with another one, and I'll spill the beans early. I couldn't be silent any further. I couldn't take it. Have you heard this one? A nation founded on religious tolerance no longer tolerates the religion of its founders. This is the subtitle to a recent book by historian William Federer called Backfire. I just released the video called Is Christianity Persecuted?, which addressed this bogus narrative about persecution by Christians in the United States of America. And years ago, I produced A Christian Nation, which tackled the lie that our founders were all Christian and that the United States was set up as a theocracy, specifically supporting Christ, Christianity, the Bible, showing favoritism to one religion and a representative government. All right, so I'm familiar with this conversation. You could say I've been down this road a few times. So I finally decided, screw it, I'm going to respond. I said, first of all, not all of our founders were religious, and many were harsh critics of religion. Perhaps you've heard of the Jefferson Bible, where Thomas Jefferson took a knife and sliced out the supernatural and unpalatable parts of the Bible, leaving only the good scripture verses. The Jefferson Bible is even on display at the Smithsonian, so you can see it for yourself. Also, you're not going to have much luck selling the idea of Christian persecution in a nation where Christians enjoy so much privilege. Is it illegal to attend church? No. Are religious symbols prohibited on private property? No. Is Christian apparel or jewelry banned? No. Have Bibles been removed from hotel rooms? No. Are crosses being yanked from street corners on church land? No. Are the thousands of Christian radio stations being shut down? No. The hundreds of Christian television stations? No. Are politicians prohibited from holding a private religious belief? No. Are private Christian schools illegal? No. Are Christians forbidden from taking missions trips in and out of the United States? No. As a Christian, you come and go as you please, with bumper stickers on your car and the pounding drum of your religion sounding all day. You're not being persecuted or oppressed, you're simply being disagreed with. And you don't like it, so you cry persecution. Sorry, Pops, but I disagree with you on the merits of Christianity and all religions. I like that quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, which says, "Let me never fall into the vulgar mistake of claiming I am persecuted when I am merely being contradicted. Have a good day." And I sent him a photograph of the Jefferson Bible with all these scripture verses excised with a knife that Jefferson did himself. It's at the Smithsonian. Okay. So my father, the Jesus parrot, responds, "Find me a quote where a founder maligned the Bible, a signer of the Declaration or Constitution. Each state had its own denomination, yet they created a lasting union." I'm not really sure what territory that text falls into. So this is an easy one. John Adams, the government of the United States, is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. This was the language of the Treaty of Tripoli, 1797, signed by John Adams and other. The famous letter to Adams by Thomas Jefferson from April 11th, 1823, as Jefferson saying, "The day will come when the mystical generation of Jesus by the Supreme Being in the womb of a virgin will be classed with the fable of the generation of Minerva in the brain of Jupiter. But we might hope that the dawn of reason and freedom of thought in these United States will do away with all this artificial scaffolding." This is part of a compilation called Letters of Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson was at best a cultural Christian, but most likely a deist. And by the way, Christopher Hitchens has done some great biographical writing on Thomas Jefferson. I continue. James Madison was a staunch church-state separatist. He wrote the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. You'll note the Constitution has no mention of God, and the only mention of religion serves to keep church and state separate. Religious faith is to remain a private enterprise, not a governmental one, because our representative government should represent all faiths and none. The words under God, all people, not just Christians. Remember that these people were escaping theocratic rule in the first place, so they consciously separated the church and the state for a reason. The words under God were not in the original Pledge of Allegiance. They were added by Congress in 1954 as a declaration of national superiority against godless communist Russia. U.S. coins didn't feature in God We Trust till around the time of the Civil War. U.S. paper money didn't have those words till the mid-1950s. I've done a lot of writing and speaking on the subject because it's so often misunderstood and misrepresented. The United States Constitution protects private religious faith from government, but it also protects government from private religious faith. I'm an atheist, and this country belongs to me just as much as it belongs to you. There was a pause in the conversation. My father responded, "A beloved hymn came out of the Civil War. The battle hymn of the Republic. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." It's alarming to me that this constitutes an argument. Okay? A religious song was written during the Civil War. Checkmate, atheists. I responded, and some songs about beer and loose women were also written during the Civil War. So what? My father says, "Give Christianity some credit. It is a religion of peace, but freedom came at an awesome price." Right? Jesus paid it all. Jesus died. We're sinners. We don't deserve heaven, but Jesus came and paid the price. God, Jesus. I said, you know what's weird? Thanks for allowing me to vent. I don't have a lot of people to talk to about this stuff. Do you know what's weird? Why are you so bothered by the fact that your son disagrees with you? Your inability to let this go reeks of flop sweat, insecurities about your own positions. So you must get those around you to agree as a reinforcement of your religious convictions. Truly secure people don't spend 10 years intruding into the life of another. He sent me another book title, called Jerusalem, where nations go to die. I mean, that's his response to everything he asked about the founding fathers. I provided the evidence. I told him about In God We Trust and the context in which all that stuff was added, blah, 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 blah. Here's another book. Jerusalem, where nations go to die. I have no idea who wrote the book. I said, Dad, you'll never really know how good my life is, how happy I am, how much of a relief it is not to have to view the real world through the distorted lens of superstition. Mom wouldn't even accept a dinner invitation at my home because my house was paid for with devil money, or it's being paid for. The mortgage is paid with devil money because I'm an atheist activist. What a terrible, terrible waste. My father said, sorry, but what you have built won't hold water. We live in view of Judgment Day. You think this life is all there is. The promised land is ahead. My response, that's a claim, but one an Islamist could make, or a Scientologist, or a Jehovah's Witness, or any of 1,000 other religions. Pick a myth, and its prophets will declare it the one true way. And I will decide the temperature of my life, regardless of your unfortunate attempts to declare me a failure. And this is the narrative. You're embarrassing the family. Yeah, you failed us as a son. We failed you as a parent. I'm not a failure. My world is good. My life is rich with love and purpose. I'm pursuing the truth without deception or self-deception, and I've never been more comfortable in my own skin. I don't need you to validate me. Nor is it appropriate for you to attempt to disqualify me from legitimacy with your personal religion. You don't get to decide whether I'm a success or a failure, ever. Dad said, we desire your happiness very much, but there is one narrow way to live. We follow that teaching. Abel didn't deserve to be killed by Cain. Those who lived righteously are despised by the world, even though we are a peace-loving people. It is a fact of life. What the fuck is he talking about? Abel didn't deserve to be killed by Cain. And what? The fact that narrative existed, even if it was true, would reveal the flaws in a supposedly flawless divine plan, blah, blah, blah. Dad, you follow it. You follow it to your heart's content, but you don't get to require me to follow it. You make it impossible to have a meaningful relationship. My father said, it is not what we desire. This is the narrative. We don't desire to have to do this, but we are charged with a mission, right? To train up a child. I'm 50. Train up a child in the way that he should go. When he's older, he will not depart from it. Bullshit. I was trained up as a child, and when I'm older, I took another look and I departed, and it's driving them batshit crazy. I said, yeah, I've heard this when you're speaking for God on his behalf. He's making you be an insufferable zealot. I wanted a father. Sadly, I got a fanatic. He said, I'm a father to many. I'm always trying to do my best. So noble. Perhaps one day, I responded, you'll respect an adult son enough to stop the unwanted interjections, the declarations of disappointment, and the threats of torment. Know what he said next? Find me a founder's quote maligning the Bible. What? That's not just saying. I'm going to keep going. This is almost done, but I'm going to keep going. I just sent you an example of Thomas Jefferson tearing out all the bad stuff in the Bible. I've spent enough time here. I've answered your challenges. If you send me more of this, I'm simply going to block your number. Parent or not, I'm not required to entertain this nonsense. Dad, after a pause, said, I will send occasional thoughts. And I said, nah. Let's be friends, let's be family, but I'm done listening to the Jesus speak. And he said, when the first human sinned, heaven said, in effect, Houston, we have a problem. We'll stop now. And I told him, you're blocked. No more text, no more Jesus text, no more preaching, no more platitudes, no more white noise of your religion, no more of all this. Let's just be friends. Let's just be family. One more I must send to you. Bye. It boggles the mind. I've had people tell me that a tactic might be, if I was just bored, to declare to my father that I found God. Oh, they'd slay the fatted calf for me, the prodigal son, and then I could tell them I'd become, a devout Muslim, blow their minds. Or, I'm now a Scientologist, and I can't wait to get my own. Think you get your own universe? It's Mormonism where you get your own planet, because the planet, I think, it's a star called Kolob. I could be a Mormon. Dad, I found God. Joseph Smith has shown me the way. He'd lose his mind. He'd just lose his mind. But you could milk that at the front end. I've found God. I had a personal experience last night. There was a white light. I heard a thunderous sound outside my window. There was a shape. There was a figure. It was an angel. And the angel spake unto me. And yea, oh yea, I have returned to the white light of God's will. Thank Allah. Allahu Akbar. They would lose their mind. They would just lose their mind. You get to the point. It's almost like the stages of grief. There's denial, and I don't know if the stages of grief are a real thing, but what they say the stages of grief are. For me, there's denial, and then there's sadness, and then there's confusion, and there's anger, and then there's depression, and then after a while, you just don't feel anything. I'm at the point now where it's like blocking spam. I just blocked spam. That's all I did. I didn't sever a tie of communication with my father in the winter of his life, right? A father that I should have a good relationship with, that I should be able to sit down and have a conversation with, that I should be able to be an adult who disagrees with. Instead, I block spam. And the silence is golden. It's interesting, too, to see the feedback from people who have advice on this. Some people say that I should keep the lines of communication open and listen because they are victims of bad ideas. I understand that. There's some merit to that. They're victims. Don't cut them off. Don't throw away the whole relationship just because they're trapped in this hamster wheel of theology and superstition and mythology and just wrong-headed craziness. They're victims. Keep them in your life. There are other people who say that the idea of blood family, blood ties is just completely bogus. And there's some merit to that, right? Sometimes I'd take a good friend over a distant relative any day. Just because you're on my family tree doesn't mean we have anything in common, doesn't mean we share the same value system. It doesn't mean we are good or bad people. You can be a parent, a child, a brother, an uncle, a cousin. You can be whatever. My father comes from the kind of thinking where if you're on the family tree, you're part of the club. The tribe is so important. And I was never that guy. I was always like, I'd take a good friend over a distant relative any day of the week. And lately, I'll take a good friend over a close relative. Most of them. Some of them. I will say, to their credit, that some other people on my immediate family tree have not been what my mother and father have been. And they have reached out, and we have a cordial, respectful relationship. They're getting it. They still operate in hugely religious circles, and they still say, ridiculous stuff like, please, Lord, guide the hands of the surgeon as we pay thousands of dollars to a trained, licensed physician to receive a divine miracle of healing. That kind of shit just goes on no matter where you go. Right? Traveling mercies as I buckle my seatbelt and enjoy all the safety features on my vehicle and observe the speed limits and still might get in a wreck, those types of, that shit just happens. They're cultural Christians. I understand that. And I'm not trying to rip that out of their hands. It's not really what I'm about. I'm not going after mom and dad, my siblings and their kids. Sometimes when I see the homeschool kids, it makes me crazy. I do wish, I hope that they're watching Uncle Seth out there. What's Uncle Seth about? One day they get curious. Wonder what Uncle Seth is doing. They come out of these little homeschool pods with these wide eyes, and they wonder what the real world looks like. And I'm like, look, I can probably save you a couple of decades of wasted time here, right? Allow my loss to be your gain. Just ask a few extra questions this week about some of the stuff you are told to believe. I do have that fantasy. But as far as mom and dad, I mean, people come at me with different pieces of advice. Let them into your heart and excuse everything they do. You're not going to have them for much longer. And I'm like, I've got them now. And what good does it do me? What do you bring to my life that's worth having? Meaning, do you bring respect and honor and respectful challenge and just productive, good, positive stuff? I mean, it's like hiring and firing an employee. And this may be a bad analogy, but I heard a great, I can't believe I'm quoting John Maxwell, but he actually had a pretty good point. We was talking about successful business people. Excuse me. And they were talking about surrounding yourself with good, talented, hardworking, honest people in your business. Okay. And he said, when you're asking the question, should I fire someone from this business, ask yourself the question, if they weren't employed here and I knew about them what I know now, would I still hire them today? Actually, it's a really good test for whether or not somebody belongs in your organization. And I look at, this, and there's been a lot of really ugly stuff said in the past. They do it in love because they care, but you'll be ashes under the feet of the believer. I'm sorry, that's not in love. That's a threat. One day we're going to walk on your ashes. One day the God I adore is going to burn you forever or whatever. Mom and dad don't even agree on the definitions of hell, what hell is. But dad is more literal, fire and sulfur and death and blackness and pain and awfulness, okay? Now, you should see these two. Ask about the basic tenets of their faith and watch them bitch at each other for hours over. They can't even agree on the basics. How should you baptize? Is salvation forever or is it temporary? Do you get the Holy Spirit at salvation or does that come later? I mean, you can just ask them specifics about the basics of their faith, and these two experts will just sit there and all the time. Just all the time. It's just like little clucking hands. Just that's all I hear. That's all I hear. So anyway, I may unblock him in another couple of months, and we'll do it again. I mentioned that I thought about, doing like a segment called text from our religious text from our families. I don't know. Like I know I'm not the only one getting this stuff. I know it. I know there are other people out there who have to endure this stuff and they get emails and whatnot. And I know it's very painful. I'm not trying to make light of your pain. Trust me. But I think sometimes it's therapeutic for all of us to get around the bar with our bartenders and just talk it out. Say, you wouldn't believe the crazy stuff that happened to me. You wouldn't believe what they said today. And people can sort of, participate and take the journey with us. I thought about doing a segment called Religious Text from My Family, and people can just submit stuff. Now they can read them. They can let me read them. I don't know if that might just become tedious for you. It might just make you so mad you'll turn the radio off. I don't want that. But I mean, would you want something like that? I mean, I'm not going to read my folks. They're blocked. So it wouldn't be me, but it might be from somebody else. I don't know. Just an interesting observation. So that's what I've been doing with my day. I asked Mom a long time ago, I said, Mom, do you think that when we were growing up, that you gave us a proper introduction to all of the rest of the world, to the criticisms of your faith, not just your faith, other religious beliefs, and none. Do you think you really, did we, you had us in private Christian school where they were selling one narrative. We had Christian friends. We had Christian activities. We listened to Christian music. We only had the Christian Bible around. We weren't familiar with other religious texts. He said, do you feel like that we as children got a proper introduction to the rest of the world and were given the opportunity to then decide, to choose in our own hearts where we are at, what's right for us? And Mom said, I didn't have to. I didn't have to show you all those other things. I already had the answer. We already knew what the answer was, son. Why bother with all of these deceptions? We already have the truth. So we just, her thinking is, we just simplified it for you. We just simplified it. We took all the extra, all the detritus, all the riffraff. You're gone. Now, we only need to teach them this. This is why when I'm in my 30s and I'm coming out of my faith, I'm looking around going, why haven't I ever heard of this before? How come I was never taught about that before? Why didn't I ever get curious to go dig about this before? I'm behind the curve. I'm doing so much catch up. Try to figure out the basics. Started with the science of evolution. You should hear my family talk about evolution. All those caricatures about my granddaddy wasn't a monkey, that's how they feel about evolution. That's what they think it is. My father once told me that he thought it was laughable that I thought I descended from a rabbit. A rabbit? I descended from a rabbit? But then, of course, you can say that, well, actually, did you realize that I and the rabbit and the hamster and the anaconda and the T-Rex and the house plant, we all actually, we have commonalities, all living things. And then that just blows their mind. Literally, you just see they're like the guy at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark when his face melts off and his glasses is coming off. He just can't take it. He's like the guy that Michael Ironside blows up in Scanners. Just he cannot process the idea because it takes away from your specialness in their mind if you have commonality with all living things. And that you and chimpanzees have common ancestry, that you're a higher primate, but you're still an animal, that you weren't handpicked by a divine king just for this moment in the universe's history to have a divine earthly mission with an eternal reward, a crown and pearly gates, streets of gold, a mansion and song and adulation from the King of Kings. If all that stuff isn't true, then life just wouldn't be worth living. What a tragic way to approach this life. Now that I don't believe that I'm going to go to heaven when I die, I love life more than I ever did. More than I ever did. Now that I am convinced there's no part 2, there's no life 2.0, there's no second shot, there's no second round, that this is it. I enjoy life more than I ever did. I apologize less for being me, and I apologize more for the mistakes I make because I know that it's not all going to be made right in the afterlife. I care more about the planet I live on. I care more about the people I encounter. I care more about maximizing the moments and setting goals and achieving dreams and making friends and demonstrating love and being charitable more now than I ever did as a Christian because there ain't another life coming around where Jesus shows up with the big, dust mop and sweeps up and then we get to go start over somewhere else. We don't get to just, trash this life with our eyes on the exit door. Because one day, this is just the practice life, but the real game is coming up. Now that I don't buy that, life means so much more. I try to communicate that. I try to communicate it. My life is good. No, it's not. My life is filled with love. No, it's not. My life is rich with purpose. No, it's not. I'm happier now more than I've ever been. No, you're not. Yes, yeah, I am. Not always easy. Sometimes a hard reality is tougher than a happy fantasy. Yeah, sometimes it does suck to live in a world that doesn't give a shit, a universe that doesn't give a shit about us. It just sort of functions, and we try to navigate through it without getting our asses kicked. Yes, there are some parts of it that are much more difficult, but overall, wouldn't you rather live a harder truth than a happy fantasy, a happy myth, to tell yourself bedtime stories to make yourself feel better, to lie to yourself just to get through the day? Do you want to be that person? I don't. Anyway, text from my father, just a kind of a short form live stream. I enjoy doing these. I'm apologizing, if I may, to the chat room. I haven't really had a chance to observe. Whatever's been said has been said. I'll just leave it up there on the screen. I'm not doing a lot of Q&A on this one, but let me encourage you, if you are going through it with someone who is religious and they are crossing a boundary into your life, and they've decided they have the right to tell you that you're a failure, or that you're not happy when you really are, or they're making you unhappy by being a constant negative force, if they are bringing nothing to your life worth having, if you knew about them today everything you knew, would you hire them today to be a part of your life? Or do you have so much history and baggage with these people that it's hard to see it objectively, and so you make allowances that you normally would not make? There comes a time when you have to terminate, or at least suspend indefinitely, someone who is being only a negative force in our lives. And we have every right to do that. And then surround ourselves with not an echo chamber of happy, clappy apologists for the same stuff we already think. That's not the point. The point is not about agreement. The point is about respect. The respect we have for other people to live their own lives, pursue truth on their own terms, and to allow them to define and frame and give the temperature of their own sort of existence on this earth without being told by everybody else, no, you're not. You have the right to live your own life. If there's somebody who's doing this stuff, fire them. Or at least give them a lot of time to think about it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.